Hammers, build your body and your bank. Check out how to earn 10K per month plus with my business intelligence, finance technology, consultant training accelerator program. Link in the description.
All right. It is time for another workout. Okay, so it is 2 a.m. and it looks like it will be another late night workout. Not ideal. If you can do it in the mornings, definitely that's better, because when you work out, it gives you dopamine, which is a precursor to focus. And especially if you're in my BI-FinTech Training Academy, you'll hear me rant a lot about exercise and focus and getting in state and all of that. So it defeats the purpose. I'm working out late at night because I'll have focus after this and I'll go to waste and I'll wake up out of state again. But usually what I rant about is cardiovascular exercise. For focus, that is king. And after I did that for a while, I wanted to get back into hypertrophic weightlifting. So when I was in high school, around 15 to 20, I really wanted to be a professional bodybuilder. And then I realized that to compete at the professional level, you need performance enhancement drugs, which I wasn't willing to go on. So I abandoned that dream and I started working out. And then later on, I'm like, you know what? I can still train like that without the PEDs, and let's see what happens, just for fun. So here we are. But usually when I first started, what I did was for 7 days a week, I just did stairs. Why? Because it gave me razor sharp focus to work and study. And most of the times I just needed razor sharp focus. But after a while, I deviated into hypertrophic weightlifting. Of course, that is really good. But for just mental sharpness and getting in state for pure inflow focus mode, I have to say the king of that is still high intensity interval training, with my favorite being stairs. So what I would do was, in my building, I would walk up the stairs 2 times, and on the 3rd time I would sprint. And then I'd come home, I'd take a shower, and the last 10 seconds I'd turn it to ice cold water. And just 10 seconds is enough to put you in a bit of a shock, which further raises dopamine by 250%, if you can believe it. And combination of the two gives you this intense, deep flow focus state. It's just a really nice state to be in while working. You're not thinking about anything else. You're in the zone, you're focused, you're working. But we're going to be discussing hypertrophic exercise. My goal currently is to get to 180 pounds at 8% body fat. And why? That was my goal when I was 15. And I got to 160 before I gave up, before I realized incorrectly that I couldn't gain any more muscle. I was just training wrong. I didn't know. I was training for 3 years. I was doing bro split. I would pick a muscle. I would exhaust it fully, like biceps, and then I'd go home. But you can't really just train one muscle once, even if you exhaust it fully, because the frequency just isn't there. So I got to 160 pounds when I was like 17. I got actually in really like almost contest ready shape, and I gave up. So I went back down to 130. For me, what happens is when I stop eating as a true ectomorph, I turn into a stick. And you know what? For a while, I didn't care. I was like, it's fine. Bodybuilding was a hobby of mine, and currently it's not. So I was totally cool with it. But 5 years passed, and then 10 years passed, and then I started compounding cardiovascular exercise on top of already being an ectomorph for the mental sharpness for while I'm focusing. And just the two of that combination, I was like, man, I'm really sticking bones now. If you see my picture, 130 pounds, I'll pop it up when I'm editing. But so I was like, why not train like a bodybuilder again? And I knew what to do because I had trained before. So pretty much I knew that I need to train to muscular failure. And really, your body doesn't know how much weight you're lifting. Of course, more load does help you get to muscular failure faster. I'm not just saying lift very lightly. But personally, for me, back when I was first training, when I was 15, I would just train on instincts. So what I mean by instincts is I would go to the bench press and I would do as many as I could. Then I would remove 10 pounds and I would do as many as I could. And I'd just go ham. I would just go as hard as I could and I'd have a massive pump. And I blew up. I was in extremely good shape when I was 15 to 20. I pretty much looked like a professional bodybuilder back then. But I was still 160 pounds. Currently, I'm 10 pounds heavier than that. But I did more research because I plateaued. I couldn't get past 160. In fact, back then, if I had just increased my protein intake, I drank 3 protein shakes a day now, each with a scoop of creatine. Had I just done that, would have smashed the plateau, but I didn't have money at the time for that much protein powder. That's part of the reason. Now, I did research, and I was like, people say you should add volume and not train to failure. You should leave a couple of reps in the tank. And I bought into all of that, okay? And I have to say that caused the demise of my bodybuilding activities for 10 years. It was the worst advice I have ever come across. Absolutely do not do that. Instinct-based training, when you train as hard as you can to go to muscular failure, is the best, bar none. So I went back to my old ways, and instead of researching, I just trained off of instinct, and I got some results. But I was still doing bro splits. One day biceps, next day triceps, next day shoulders, next day legs, next day back, and wasn't really, intuitively I felt I wasn't hitting it correctly. And then I actually switched to routine. I kept hearing that you should compound the exercises. You should not compound the exercises more. You should train more muscles more frequently in a week. So I actually got this from my brother, but I started doing chest and back off, arms, bicep, triceps, shoulders off, and legs. So the routine I got, the chest and back, arms, and legs, I got that from my brother. And then the extra days off I got from Dorian Yates. So he actually says take 2 days off, and when you come back, go ham, go as hard as you can, make sure you're fully recovered. And I tried that. For me, 2 days off is too much. It's good for maintenance, but the sweet spot that absolutely got me to blow up, and I'm talking about 20 pounds of muscle per year naturally. Mind you gotta make sure your protein is there, which is like absolutely super important. Non-negotiable, 3 protein shakes a day, each with a scoop of creatine. 15 grams of creatine per day, 3 protein shakes per day, and I eat 6 eggs in the morning. I remove 3 of the yolks. So if the protein is there, and from Dorian Yates, he says you need more you need more intensity, and you need more rest. You need more intensity and you need more rest. So when I started lumping the workouts together, chest and back, I upped my intensity with intensity techniques. As if you've been watching my channel, you'll know I rant at length about those. Partial reps, drop sets, supersets, rest pauses, ignition sets, static holds. Probably forgetting a few, but the reps near muscular failure are the most important. And it's really hard to get there, especially for something like legs. So use intensity techniques to help you get to muscular failure easier. So maybe on your main working set, you got to 95% there, but then you wouldn't really get to 100% muscular failure. And in fact, even if you went there, if you did some negative reps, that would have been more anabolic, more hypertrophic benefit. But of course, you stopped 1 or 2 reps shy. And that was where the gains were. That was where the best spot was. Let's say if you're doing 10 reps, all of the 9 reps was for that 10th rep. All of that worked, right? So once you get to the 10th rep, you take a rest pause. You pause for 5 seconds, you do 2 more. You pause for 5 seconds, you do 2 more. And that way you get the very last best rep multiple times, over and over again. And that's intensity technique. Pick those off of Dorian Yates and then Tom Platz. This guy's insane. If you watch his YouTube videos, you're just gonna see him going bananas trying to break the machines. Of course, don't do that. But what he says is you should train based on instincts. You should go in there with a meditative mindset that you're going to have the best workout possible, because that is literally what's going to cause growth. I had to untrain myself so for a while, I would pick an exercise like back and then I do 9 sets of pull-ups, and I just do 7 reps, 9 sets, right? I was like, okay. So I left about 3 reps in reserve. The scientific literature, journal articles, of course, journal articles are actually the best. So it's a little bit hypocritical of me to critique them, because that is what I personally go by when I look at anything else. Let me grab this over here. But in this case, you have to also really see what works for you. And what works for me is instinct-based training, intensity-based training, 20 pounds of muscle, 2 years in a row. I put on 40 pounds is no joke. And progressive overload. So what you got to do is you got to write down your reps, and you got to write down the sets you did. You got to write down the half reps. That's why I put my progressive overload notes at the end, so you guys can see exactly how I track them. And now I've been working out for 3 years now, so most of my reps actually stay consistent. Like when I go do bench press, I know when I put on 45-pound plate and 25-pound plate on both sides, depending on my condition. A, if I'm sleep deprived. B, if I'm doing it early morning from fully rested, or if I'm doing it late at night like this, I'll either get 6 reps to 8 reps. I know that. And if I'm consistent, slowly I will be able to increase those reps. And I time my rest period, 1 minute and 30 seconds to 2 minutes and 30 seconds, depending on the exercise. The rest period needs to be constant, because if you're varying that, you don't know if you're getting stronger. So if you're going to the gym, you're tracking your reps, you're doing intensity-based training, and with that, you're getting stronger. You're adding reps. So if you're an advanced lifter, after 3 months or so, you're adding reps every month or 2 months or 3 months. Even if you're increasing the rep by 1, that's still progressive overload. The problem is when you train with the 3 to 6 rep range, you're not getting enough time under tension to appropriately stimulate hypertrophy. You need a certain amount of time under tension where you're literally holding the weight. It could even be static reps. You see me when I'm doing standing calf raises. But if the time under tension is too small, if you're just doing 3 reps, you will get stronger, but your muscles are not going to get bigger. And if you're a power lifter with different goals and you're purely chasing strength, then the aesthetic appeal of it is secondary to the primary goals. For me, my hobby's always been bodybuilding. And I do like cardiovascular exercise now for the sharpness it gives me. I used to not even do a single anything because I would think it would lose me size, and that's just not true. You should definitely do cardiovascular exercise. Now, okay, I should go in because it's 15, but I just want to rant a little bit more. So these late night workouts, why so late? So I'm working on my training academy. I've been working on this for 1 year and 1.25 years now. It's called Business Intelligence Finance Technology Consultant Training Accelerator. And pretty much I dedicated 5 years of my life to becoming an ultra competent project management consultant. And I took all of that information and I productized it into a training academy. So if that is in your interest, if you want to be a consultant, a professional consultant, not the one that like teaches small businesses how to get clients with lead generation, not a marketing consultant, a professional consultant with professional credentials for project management. Like me, I got the PMP, Project Management Professional Credential, the gold standard for the professional job where a large company like a Fortune 500 company pays you for your services. So that type. So I spent 5 years of my life really figuring that out. And I productized it into this course. I took a lot of information. I went through all of my to-do lists for the past 5 years, past 10 years, and I turned it into a super deadly consultant training accelerator program. And you know what? I had a really good job, and I was making $407,000 per year salary equivalent. I say salary equivalent because I was on contract, so it wasn't technically salary. But the amount of money I was taking home after taxes, take home to the bank, I would need to make that much to get paid that amount. I bought a Porsche. I had to let it go because I pretty much sacrificed everything for an entrepreneurial direction, which I really wanted to try because it's just something that I don't think I would be satisfied with life unless I gave a full-hearted attempt at the entrepreneurial direction. So I had a great job, and apologies to my boss, goodbyes, and I left that behind. So in my past role, I was a work stream data analytics project management consultant managing 20 data analysts, and they're called Power BI analysts and data engineers. So I do things like host ceremonies, Scrum ceremonies. We would create large automated reports, like 200 reports at a time, for public healthcare data. And think about ingesting like 5 to 10 gigabytes of data on the cloud per hour and setting that up into a data pipeline, having it automated where the data engineers, they set up the data source, like 50 of them. The data sources come in through a pipeline, they go to a cloud warehouse, Snowflake or ADF, Azure Data Factory. From there, there's a DLL view that the data engineers make, and it's like massive amounts of data that the Power BI front end folks need to be able to query. So the data engineers would make that portion. Once that's done, the Power BI front end resources would be able to access that data, and they all work together into this factory, pumping out business intelligence reports, giving insight into critical data that the business can then use to make decisions. So I would lead the ceremonies for that, and the technical resources were excellent. They were all engineers, they were all professionals, and we would work together to get this done. And all in all, it was one of the best jobs in the country, I have to say. But I left that behind. I still have the credentials. I still have my engineering degree. I still have my project management professional credentials. I still have my Azure 305 Azure Cloud Architect credentials. And I still have my Scrum Master credentials. So I still know how to do it inside out. Plus, one of the things I learned as a consultant was how to make a demand management dashboard, which is a Power BI dashboard that I spent 200 hours on, an organization with 200 people, and you set it up such that all of their work goes into a project, a software like MS Project Cloud Enterprise, and then you run business intelligence reports on the project management data to produce insights for the organization. So just something similar, but at a smaller scale. So pretty much that was my role, and I spent 5 years perfecting it. Honestly, school cannot prepare you for that. So I'm going to be releasing what I call a video sales letter explaining all of this. So I'm not going to bore you guys with too much details. I had an engineering degree, and I had to go to the field and I had to figure it out. So the first thing you figure out is waterfall. Waterfall is a linear form of project management where you have a project charter, you have a defined end date. Over a 1 year period, you work towards the end of the project. By the time you get to the end, the requirements change, there are bugs. The person who worked on the project is no longer there. You have to trace all that behind. And waterfall just doesn't work in software development. So then the new kid on the block was Agile. Agile was the go-to methodology. Why? Because all of these small companies were using Agile to create new products, and they were eating market share. And all these big Fortune 500 companies, what they had to do was they had to constantly buy these small startups. So capital was cheap from like 2010 to 2020, and a small startup would come, they would use Agile, they'd make crazy software. A big company would be like, hey, how did you do that? And we don't want to compete with you, we're just going to buy you out. And they just buy them out for the talent pool. So Agile was the new kid on the block. So once you started consulting, first you need to know waterfall. But that got your foot in the door, because without that, you don't get hired. Then you need Agile. Then Agile wasn't working out well either, the industry realized, because what happens is, so instead of a project for a year duration, you have what's called a sprint. So you work over a 2-week duration. You have the requirements, you get together in a sprint planning meeting. You have the requirements for the 2-week period. You ship feature complete, fully tested, the whole project management lifecycle over the 2-week period. And at the end, including customer demo for feedback, you deliver all of that, and then you do a sprint review. So what that did was it made the feedback loop a lot shorter. You could demo your end result to the customer instead of waiting for a year and they don't want it, which was better. But what happened is something called points, velocity points. This terminology came about where the Scrum teams were measured on the number of features delivered. So they would just pump out features, and the Scrum Master is a fancy way of saying software project manager who practices Agile. They would be judged on how many features they shipped. The development team would be judged on how many features they shipped.
And the end client would be like, we're only using 5% of these features. So then came the product management methodology, where it's an experiment-based approach. And that is actually the king. So first you got to know project management, linear style, waterfall, professional consulting. Then you got to know Agile, Scrum. Once you know those two, then you got to know what's called product discovery, where you have a hypothesis. A, I think the customer wants this. B, you run the hypothesis, you run the tests, and then you see what happened. And it's a different sort of mentality. And it is very hypothesis and customer talking, customer centric type of methodology. What would happen is I would start consulting, and part of the organization would be in waterfall, and maybe I spent a year learning waterfall, and I don't know product management, I don't know Agile, and then another part of the organization is learning Agile, but the finance part is we don't want anything to do with Agile. We just want the traditional way, because you Agile folks, you cannot estimate the budget, and we need the budget estimated to get XYZ approval for next year. To this date, there is an internal conflict. There's 3 methodologies always in action. I call it hybrid. And a new consultant will come in as, I know this one, but they'll get blindsided by the other 3. So I went through this battle for over 5 years, almost 10 years. I worked like 6 different contracts, and I was like, okay, I know this one. Then I go to another contract, and I'm like, why is it not working here? What happened is I ended up mastering all 3. And I then realized you really need all 3. You cannot just do PMP, project management professional certification, linear format, know the project management lifecycle, the software delivery lifecycle, and get away with it. You need to know all 3 methodologies. So I built this consultant training accelerator program. If this interests you, I highly recommend you check it out. Apologies for this rant. I'll put a little link when I start ranting about this in the video. So if you're here just for the hypertrophic workout, you can skip all of this. But if this interests you, I have cracked the code. I know exactly how to do this. I read so many books on it. I went to so many different contracts. I've been through so many hairy problems. And through the whole time, I took meticulous notes. If you look at my early bird VSL, you'll see 10 books filled out. While I was trying to solve this, all of my to-do lists, everything I studied, all of my problems I went into, I spent the past year just parsing all of it, looking up all of my sources, putting it all together into a tight roadmap, into a consultant training accelerator program, where I personally teach you fundamentals of data engineering, traditional project management, agile project management, product management. I teach you the 3 certifications, PMP, PSM, AZ305. Everything is built on the cloud. You need to know that. You need to know project management. You need to know Agile. So I teach all of that, and I teach the Power BI demand management dashboard that I spent 200 hours learning, that to this day, if an organization wants it, they got to pay $60,000 to a vendor like Microsoft, Sensei Project Solutions, PPM Express. So I put all of that together into one extremely deadly course, which I call the Business Intelligence Finance Technology Consultant Training Accelerator Program. And essentially, it's a specialized type of project manager, a project management consultant in the software domain, in finance technology for data products. And I don't think you can go to school for this. In fact, when you watch my VSL, you will see that Jamie Dimon, the leader of JP Morgan, he says there's a gap in schools. You go to school, you get this degree, which is not useful, and then you join the workforce and you don't know what you're doing. He critiques schools for not training people correctly. And that was my own experience as well. I studied aerospace engineering, and the market for aerospace engineering just wasn't that active. I looked at the time, there was 5,000 jobs posted for aerospace, and there was 40,000 posted, this is in Canada, there's 40,000 posted for software technology. And I was like, I'm going to hop ship, because I applied to 200 jobs. So I had to teach myself. All of this from scratch. I went into all of the wrong directions. First, I learned VBA, Visual Basic Advanced, for macros running on Excel. Yeah, you could do that, but there's better ways. Power Query is so much better. So I went through all of that. I started at entry-level role. I started at Scotiabank head office. I worked at a transit company. I worked at Morgan Stanley, cloud migration arm. I forget. It was more detailed than that. And I worked at a large healthcare company in Canada that does all of the business intelligence reporting products to the government, the workstream PM for reporting. So all of that, none of the skills were taught in school. Yes, you learn some stuff, but in order to hit the ground running, to know how to get the jobs, to know what you're looking for, to be compensated well, to have the consulting skill sets just isn't there. So in this program, so I'm going to stop ranting, but that's pretty much what it is. That's my training academy. That's why I've been awake all day. And I want to train earlier. I really do. But for me, training is secondary. It's my passion, but it's not my primary purpose at this moment. My primary purpose right now is to train project managers and train ultra competent project management consultants in finance technology domain for data analytics and so forth. So if this interests you at all, if what I'm saying interests you at all, definitely check that out. So let's get the workout, because I want to test the limits of natural hypertrophy, but I don't want to do it in an unreasonable fashion. I don't want to do it 2 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's just not sustainable. I want to do it as a secondary item in my life, which means sometimes I have to do it at 2 a.m. If I'm busy all day, I've been video editing all day, I've been looking at virtual assistants, I've been working on my VSL script, I've been working on my course modules, I've been organizing everything. Yesterday I clocked in 14 hours. So how am I supposed to train? And I guess I have to train at this time. It's not always like this. It's better if I wake up early and do it, but this is just how the cookie's crumbling right now because I have to launch the agency. So I need to do this in a reasonable way. I'm going to train. I'm going to test the limits of natural hypertrophy, but without unreasonable time commitments.
All right, we have made it. Time to start the workout. Now, because it's late, I'm going to put myself in the mentality that I must go to failure. So when it gets hard, like if I'm doing pull-ups, I'm just going to hang and then take a breath. I'll make sure I push to failure. I really need to get to muscular failure. Otherwise, the workout is not effective. I'm going to make sure I do that. But first, we're going to start with treadmill 5 minutes. All right, so we are going to start with 5 minutes of stair climber. Straightforward, speed 5. Not going to bore you guys. Once I'm done this, I'll catch up with you guys. 5 minutes. This gets the core body temperature up, which is essential to making sure you don't get injured. And if you get injured, it sucks because you miss so much time. So make sure you don't get injured and do your warm-ups. All right, next is 30 reps of side laterals with 10 pounds for shoulder warm-up. All right, I'm going to shortcut the warm-ups by doing them here. It's 3 in the morning, so I'm going to shortcut the warm-ups, but we're still going to do some warm-ups. So I'll do the quads, then I'll do the hamstrings, and I'll do the abs, even though I feel like skipping it. It turns into a habit and I injure my back, so I'll do that, and then we'll get to the training. Damn, shoulder veins. I haven't even started training yet. See that? Natural bodybuilding works. Probably doesn't show up on camera. Okay, so hamstring, I'm just gonna do it like this. Yeah, I know, lazy mode, but I did do the 5 minutes of stair climber, so hopefully it's not too detrimental.
Okay, time for some playing. Nobody's here. Otherwise, I do them somewhere else. All right, that concludes warm up. Next is pull-ups. Very clean pull-ups with half reps at the end. Actually, I forgot. I got to do traps. Today is accessory day for traps. So I'm going to do those. We are going to do some crazy supersets and do them in one go. So I'm going to do a triple level drop set and I'm going to exhaust traps in one go. Drop set. Okay, I used a 60 pound and a 55 pound, so definitely don't do that. But we're gonna go to 50 pound and 50 pound now. I used a 60 pound and a 55 pound. Yeah, so drops. I was thinking it felt too easy, that's probably why. Okay, my grip was given out there, so I'm gonna combine this triple level drop set with rest pauses now. So I'm gonna take a bit of a 10-second break. So we go from 60 pounds to 50 pounds to 40 pounds. And the 40 pounds, I'm gonna work that groove by doing lots of rest pauses because they're already kind of feeling pretty good, but I'm gonna do 3 rest pauses here. Okay, just gonna wait like 5 seconds and that'll be the rest pause and then get back to it. That way I'm working that last rep range. That's really, really awesome to work. Now I'm gonna do half reps here. LPRs. Okay, they're pretty much toast at this point, the traps in one go. But one more rest pause, meaning I'm gonna get to it now. Okay, I'm happy with that. And the next is going to be pull-ups. 3 sets of pull-ups, full range of motion, maximum stretch, fully let myself dead hang. The maximum stretch is the most anabolic part. And once I'm fully fatigued, LPRs, partial reps. Check out this crazy machine. I don't even know what this does. Looks like some sort of squatting contraption. Pretty crazy, probably powerlifting. All right, last set. I'm gonna go for 7 and then 5 half reps. I do that jumping thing because I'm losing my grip. That bar is kind of slippery. I don't know if these shoulder veins are showing up on camera, but they look pretty crazy in person. They're not really, the shoulder veins aren't really showing up on the camera though. They're going bananas right now, which is pretty cool. But even the bicep, I don't even know what this thing is called, but that too. Just for like 3 sets of pull-ups, like, all right, I'm gonna have to do every exercise properly if I want to get to 180 pounds. Seated rows, that's next. Okay, I'm gonna do about 80 pounds times 20 reps. I'm gonna concentrate on form. This is the exercise I usually injure my back on, so I'm gonna keep it so I don't arch back too much. Some people around forward, I usually arch back too much and forget to flex my abs, so that's why I get injured. So I'm gonna make sure I flex my abs, and in fact, your torso to leg angle should not be greater than 90 degrees. It should be less than 90 degrees. So that's what I'm gonna focus on, and flexing my abs and keeping my back straight, and then trying to get as many reps as I can, but I'm not gonna push it here too hard. Just gonna concentrate on form and pulling with my elbows. Okay, so I'm gonna do about 85 and drop set with 70. I know pretty light, but I'm just gonna be careful here. And this stack is different than the one at Fit for Less. So usually I do a little bit more there, but my aim is 12 reps, 5 half reps, and then 10 reps, 5 half reps after that. That felt really good. I was able to control the weight because it was a little bit lighter, so I was able to control the tempo, so that actually felt really good by the end. Okay, so next I'm gonna do these half deadlifts or rack pulls just to warm up. All right, that wasn't much of a warm-up because the support bar was too high. There wasn't much range of motion, so I'm gonna do another warm-up on the ground. All right, warm up again. 25-pound plate on either side with a 45-pound bar. All right, here I'm gonna go for 8 clean reps, 3 sets total. The next 2 sets will be 8, and 12. I know, that's pretty light. It's much less than I bench press. However, it's my 3rd session doing deadlifts, so I'm gonna slowly, progressively overload. Deadlifts, I'm not gonna go bananas. Injuries means you're out of the game for a while, so felt pretty good. Okay, so still challenging, but felt pretty good. 2 more sets. Okay, so this is my 3rd week doing, 3rd working out session doing deadlifts. So I've been doing 45-pound plate, 45-pound plate, plus the bar 45-pound plate for all of those sessions. So this session, I am gonna increase the last set by 10 pounds on both sides. Harder than I expected, but it felt pretty good. All right, we are done with back. Next is chest. And the funny thing about chest is I can exhaust it in about 10% of the time it takes me to work out back, and chest will still grow faster. So I guess back is just harder to grow. But up next is warm up on bench with 25-pound plates on the 45-pound bar. Flat bench, flat bar, bench press. Warm up. You know, I just realized that I usually don't get these safety bars. When I work out at Fit for Less, they don't have these safety bars. So I can actually test my upper range of my strength. So I think I'm going to use this opportunity to try 2 plates. I will still superset it with the drop set, even if I don't even get a rep, because otherwise it's just a waste of a set from a hypertrophic perspective, since there's not enough time under tension. But I'm curious, so let's give it a shot. That needs work. I got 2. All right, set number 2 Usually I'd go for 4 plus 6 here. Let's see how many I get though after I try the 2 plates. All right, I'm gonna go again for 4 plus 6 on the superset. Let's see how it goes. Definitely gives me confidence with the safety bars. 2 sets of supersets, 2 sets of dips, supersetted with length and partial reps, and we're done. All right, so this is gonna be the finisher for chest. I'm gonna do 6 plus 6, 6 normal reps, nice and clean, super deep, with 6 partial reps, like quarter reps, with a 30-second break, and then 6 more. So kind of like an extended rest pause. Just the tail end of the workout now. One more. I can't quite get that 6th rep, but that's fine. I'm more concerned about the speed of the rep and the depth of the rep and the explosiveness out than getting all of the reps. So one more. All right, all done. Just about an hour and 5 or hour and 10 minutes. Perfect length, happy with that. Good workout. Got to try 2 plates, got 2 reps. Thinking I could get 3, but guess not. Time to go check out the pump. All right, let's check out that 4 a.m. pump.
Hey there, Hassan here. Do you want a copy of this tracking sheet? Gamify your progress and level up. It's exactly what I used. Just click the link in the description for your free copy.